If you grow chilies, you know this feeling. The plant looks strong, the leaves are dark and healthy, it flowers beautifully in early summer, and then somewhere in the middle of the season, things just slow down. Flowers drop before they set. Fruit production stalls, even though the plant still looks perfectly fine from the outside. You water it on schedule, you fed it whatever fertilizer the garden center recommended, and still the plant seems to be holding back instead of producing the way you hoped it would. I remember standing in the garden one July afternoon, wondering why two chili plants growing side by side in identical pots looked so different. Same variety, same soil, same watering can, same stretch of afternoon sun, and yet one of them just kept going, flower after flower, fruit after fruit, while the other had all but stopped, sitting there looking healthy but producing almost nothing. Same everything, except the results weren't the same at all. That difference bothered me for weeks, and it sent me looking for an answer I wasn't expecting to find. I want to tell you about something that sits in almost every kitchen cupboard, and most people have no idea it's one of the quiet secrets old-time gardeners have used on their chili plants for generations. Before I get into it, if you enjoy this kind of practical, no-nonsense gardening talk, the kind that's about what actually works rather than what looks exciting on camera, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you think, and I've got plenty more of these lessons to pass along. Here's something that took me a long time to really understand. A chili plant needs change as it grows. Early on, it's mostly focused on building leaves and stems, and nitrogen does most of that work. But once it starts flowering and setting fruit, the plant's priorities shift. It's not just growing anymore, it's trying to produce and ripen fruit, and that's a different kind of demand on the soil. A lot of home gardens are set up well for that early leafy growth stage, but quietly fall a little short once the plant moves into heavy flowering and fruiting. That's usually right around when gardeners get frustrated. The plant looks healthy, so it's easy to assume everything's fine and the slowdown is just bad luck or the wrong variety or the weather. I used to think the same thing, and for a long time my answer to every slowdown was the same. Buy a stronger fertilizer, use a little more of it. But standing between those two pots that July, I finally understood that wasn't it. Throwing more at a plant isn't the same as giving it what it's actually short on. Then I realized the answer wasn't another fertilizer. It wasn't expensive, and it wasn't something I had to order online or hunt for at a specialty nursery. I'd walked past it dozens of times without giving it a second thought. It had been sitting on a shelf in my own kitchen the whole time. It was Epsom salt. And here's the surprising part. What surprised me wasn't that experienced gardeners used it, it was how little they actually needed. Just one level spoon dissolved in water can be enough to help correct the shortfall when a plant is genuinely short on magnesium. I know that sounds almost too plain to matter, so let me explain why it works because there's more to it than just add this. Epsom salt is magnesium sulfate, magnesium and sulfur. Two things a chili plant genuinely needs, just in much smaller amounts than nitrogen, phosphorus, or potassium. Magnesium sits at the center of chlorophyll, so without enough of it, a plant simply can't photosynthesize as efficiently. You'll often see the shortfall first as yellowing between the veins of the older leaves, while the veins themselves stay green. But there was still one thing that didn't quite add up. Same variety, same soil, same watering. So why would one pot run short and not the other? Here's where most people get it wrong, and I did too for a while. Most garden soil actually has enough magnesium for basic growth. A shortfall is more likely to show up during heavy flowering and fruiting when demand is higher, and it shows up most in containers where regular watering slowly leaches nutrients out through the drainage holes faster than it does in open beds. Looking back, I don't think one pot was better. I think one simply reached its limits sooner. Small differences in root growth or nutrient availability can make two otherwise similar plants behave quite differently, even side by side. That finally explained why the two plants behaved differently. But it still left me with one question. If magnesium was the whole story, why does Epsom salt contain sulfur too? There's another piece that often gets overlooked. Sulfur, the other half of Epsom salt, also plays a supporting role in how plants build proteins and enzymes they need for ordinary growth. It doesn't get talked about nearly as much as magnesium, but it's part of the same picture. Now, I want to be clear with you, the same way I'd want someone to be clear with me. Epsom salt is not a fertilizer. It has no nitrogen, no phosphorus, no potassium, the three nutrients a chili plant needs in the largest amounts. It won't fix a plant that's underwatered, sitting in poor soil, or not getting enough sun. What it can do when a genuine magnesium shortfall exists is help support more consistent flowering and steadier fruit development. That's the honest scope of it, nothing more. That's where I made my biggest mistake. I assumed 1 spoon was good, so 2 must be even better. It didn't work that way. Epsom salt is still a salt, and using too much of it doesn't double the benefit. It just builds up in the soil over time and starts working against the plant instead of for it. So here's the schedule I settled on instead once I stopped trying to rush it. 1 level tablespoon dissolved completely in a gallon of water, fully dissolved, not left as gritty crystals, so the roots take it up evenly instead of getting an uneven, concentrated dose in one spot. I usually do this just after sunrise when the soil still feels cool underfoot and the leaves are still carrying the last of the morning dew. I pour it slowly around the base of each plant and watch the soil slowly drink it in. I do this roughly once every 3 to 4 weeks during the flowering and fruiting stage, not before that stage and not constantly. Timing matters more than the amount does, honestly. Early in the season, when the plant is mostly building leaves, it isn't drawing on magnesium the same way, so there's little reason to add any yet. It's once flowering begins and fruit starts setting that this tends to make the most noticeable difference, if it's needed at all. A couple of other things worth watching for. Don't reach for it if your leaves already look uniformly green and your plant is flowering and fruiting just fine. You'd be solving a problem that isn't actually there. And whatever you do, don't let this one small habit distract you from the basics. No amount of Epsom salt makes up for inconsistent watering, poor drainage, or a plant that isn't getting enough direct sun. Those fundamentals still come first, always. I'll be honest about what to actually expect, because I don't believe in dressing this up for you. You're not going to see your chili plant transform overnight, and you're not going to get some dramatic explosion of fruit that wasn't there before. What you might notice with consistent care in a soil that was genuinely running low is deeper green foliage, steadier flowering through the season, and fruit that develops a bit more evenly instead of stalling partway through. I remember standing there in July wondering why those two plants looked so different. By late August, I was standing in exactly the same spot again, this time with a handful of fresh chilies instead of a head full of questions. They were still the same variety in the same pots with the same watering can. The biggest thing that had changed was my understanding of what they needed. Looking back, it wasn't really the spoon that mattered. It was finally understanding why I was using it. Those two pots taught me something I still carry into every season. Every time I see two plants growing side by side now, I don't assume one is simply better. I start asking what it's trying to tell me. Healthy plants rarely need dramatic solutions. More often, they're waiting for someone to notice the small thing that's missing. So if you're curious, mix up a small batch, water it in around your chili plants at the base, and just pay attention the way you already do. See what you notice over the following weeks. And if you've got your own version of this, your own small fix passed down from someone before you, I'd genuinely like to hear about it in the comments. If this story changed the way you look at the quiet struggles of your garden, please subscribe and like the channel. We are uncovering the gardening wisdom that often gets buried by time. Let's grow the future together. The next treasure of knowledge will be open soon.